I'm tired of Diablo 4 and so I decided to try out different ARPGs existing on Steam and make this video. The RPG genre typically offers players advanced build crafting, endgame content, valuable loot of different types and qualities, tough bosses, a variety of skills, monsters and locations. While Diablo 4 is a major player in the isometric action RPG market, there are several other interesting games that offer a unique experience and an alternative take on the genre. Fortunately or not, Diablo 4 didn't quite live up to my expectations. Instead of adding more content, the developers continue to exploit monetization and put in the bare minimum effort with each new season. The endgame turned out to be underdone, the leveling is repetitive, and the loot brings no excitement. Even after several years, players are still forced to farm Ubers, Helltides or Pits for rewards that give nothing and lead nowhere. I've covered this in several of my videos, feel free to check them out. With that in mind, I've decided to shift my focus, at least for now, to other more interesting games, and I invite you to take a look at my list of alternative ARPGs. Some of them you've probably heard of already. Even if that's the case, let me explain my point of view. Maybe you are looking for a more challenging game or a casual experience. Maybe I can help you out. Let's start with the Torchlight series. The first game of the series was released in 2009 and invited players to dive into a randomly generated dungeon, much like in the classic Diablo. Using this formula as a base, the developers made their own tweaks. They created a more colorful world, added their own classes, game mechanics and even mod support. Torchlight 2, released in 2012, expanded on that formula with even more content, larger areas, diverse biomes, numerous quests and dialogues, Steam Workshop mod support, interesting loot, a variety of classes, skills, pets and much more. This game remains perfectly playable even today and is very beginner friendly. The world is full of bright colors, unlike Diablo 4's grim atmosphere. What's so special about Torchlight 2 are the mod support, co-op play for up to 4 players, rewarding loot with a socketing system and pets aka companions. These companions can not only fight alongside you but also sell accumulated loot without visiting town. This significantly simplifies the farming process. The gameplay itself isn't super fast-paced and is quite intuitive. Even a beginner can create an interesting build that will synergize with skills and deal solid damage. And on top of that, you have mod support. You don't even have to use ModDB or Nexus mods. Just find an interesting mod on Steam, subscribe to it and it will work in your game. Speaking of endgame, Torchlight 2 has New Game Plus and the Map Works system, which grants access to randomized dungeon maps with modifiers. These maps scale with the player's level and offer high tier loot. As for Torchlight 3, which released in 2020, it failed to overshadow its predecessor. This game feels a bit repetitive and less polished, but despite mixed reviews on Steam, I still enjoyed it for 20 hours, experiencing with builds, classes and gear. I would say that it's worth trying for campaign, progression as a whole, unusual classes like Railmaster and special features like Fort system. Here you can build and upgrade your personal base. As for the endgame, Torchlight 3 centers on Firzj dungeon with challenging modifiers. However, this aspect of the game lacks depth in my opinion, and it can hold your attention just for a few extra hours once you beat the campaign. And unfortunately, for some reason, the game doesn't have mod support, which further reduces the replayability value. It is a linear game that lacks inspiring content, but still it is pretty much playable, especially with friends who are not familiar with this genre. Next one is Firzj. It's a fast-paced pixel art ARPG with roguelike mechanics and variety of classes. I've played this game for a few hours back when it was still not 2.0. Unfortunately, for some reason my progression was lost during the major update, but it surely has something to offer for new or returning players. Firzj is like a mix of Diablo, Binding of Isaac or Vampire Survivors. Here you have plenty of different zones filled with random events, monsters, elites and dungeon and bosses that require certain approach. I'd say that replayability is the biggest advantage here, and with online multiplayer it is getting even more chaotic in a good way. For such a small indie title you get complete campaign with several acts, varied loot of different tiers and quality, seasons of course, and well thought endgame system. Some of the game aspects strongly resemble Diablo, so if you play D2, D3 or D4 you'll get used to it quickly. Here you have the auction house, 4 different levels like normal, nightmare, hell and inferno, familiar waypoints, minimap, Tetris styled inventory, rune words, skill tree, leaderboards, mercenaries and even paragon board with notes from Diablo 4. Once you complete the campaign and reach inferno difficulty, the real grind begins. The endgame includes satanic zones with new high tier items, Ubers, challenge dungeons, chaos towers, glyphs and more. All this content feels meaningful to eventually turn your class into a machine of death. So as you can see, this game has a lot of content even without paid DLCs. Unfortunately this game isn't perfect either, and it has some controversy among the players since that 2.0 launch. At first it might look like a simple pixel farming simulator, but the more you play it, the more you realize that Firzj can offer a variety of activities. Next one is The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing Final Cut. It's another underrated lore-driven RPG set, as you might guess, in the world of Van Helsing. Werewolves, undead, vampires, giant rats, and gloomy industrial Eastern European landscapes, all of that is here. If you enjoy dark, oppressive atmosphere, this game might be the right pick for you. Van Helsing successfully blends gothic horror, steampunk, and engaging storytelling. The Final Cut is essentially a remaster that combines all 3 standalone acts into one complete experience. In terms of gameplay, Van Helsing mixes traditional RPG mechanics with both firearms and melee combat. Most of the time you'll be doing what's expected, slaying monsters for loot and XP. The story itself isn't particularly groundbreaking and can feel predictable, but that's not really the point of this game. The real stuff lies in the progression systems. Van Helsing offers a wide range of skill customization, a tower defense mode, and optional side quests to empower your character. There are 6 playable classes, each offering a distinct playstyle. The combat may feel somewhat dated today, and even with the high resolution texture pack, the visuals aren't exactly good. But overall the game is still playable, especially in co-op mode with up to 4 players. I haven't personally tested the co-op functionality, but it does appear to still work online. Outside of the campaign there's a base management, crafting and even a ghost companion who comes with their own skills, equipment and behavior system. So once you finish the main story you can dive into adventure mode, scenario challenges, combat arenas and the glory leveling system, essentially like a Paragon style progression similar to Diablo 3. And that's what the game has to offer. If you enjoy exploration and progression you can always replay the campaign on higher difficulties, but beyond that Van Helsing is likely a one-time experience. Still, if you are drawn to its unique steampunk gothic setting, it is definitely worth giving a try. Next game in my list is The Sloremancer. It's a creative RPG with colorful pixel art style similar to Firzj. It has a surprisingly deep build system centered around one of 3 main classes, Knight, Huntress or Mage. Each of them have some strengths and weaknesses, and all of them have their own set of skills and specializations. I doubt that this information would be a surprise to anyone. What makes Sloremancer special is the progression itself. Your journey is not tied to a single class and you can switch them on the go. Here you have a large collection of Slorm Reapers, aka weapons, with unique attributes and bonuses which you can level up individually. All these special items can personalize your playstyle, and this basically means that you won't find a generic weapon in this game. The Sloremancer also has the familiar Diablo style items of different quality like rare, epic or legendary, and you can reforge all that once you unlock the blacksmith. Skills in Sloremancer also have a few flavors to customize your experience. Every single one of them has its own passive skill tree similar to Last Epoch, but more linear and instead divided by tiers. And there is also one extra tree called Ancestral Legacy where you can unlock nodes and customize your character even more. Almost every element of your build can be upgraded or altered, so in the end you get the character you really want. Some certain nodes and passive skills can be real game changers. As for the endgame, the Slormancer is centered around expeditions with procedurally generated dungeons. These are repeatable zones that scale in difficulty and offer randomized modifiers and monsters. Each run you will receive gold, gear and Slorm resource for upgrading skills or weapons. So to sum up, Slormancer will give you deep customization, progression, rewarding endgame, challenging activities and good visuals. It is a solid game and judging by the contents, the developers surely know what they are doing with this RPG. Unfortunately, there is just one problem with this game. There is no multiplayer or co-op mode whatsoever. If it's that important to you and you are not willing to play solo, then you should consider other games. The next game in my list is Diablo Immortal. You won't believe what I say now, but in my opinion this mobile game has more storylines, engaging quests and endgame content than Diablo 4. Despite the fact that it's heavily monetized, you can play the entire story from start to finish on any character. There's no need to spend even a single penny unless you really want to achieve digital success and play it daily. Despite being a no-phones game, Diablo Immortal retains the core ARPG mechanics, fast-paced combat, randomized loot, and engaging character progression. You have 8 classes to choose from. Some are completely new, Tempest and Blood Knight, and some are from Diablo 3, Barbarian, Wizard, Demon Hunter, Monk, Crusader or Necromancer. The controls and everything are optimized for touchscreen, but for better experience you can play it on desktop. I have reviewed this game and shared my opinion regarding endgame content in these videos. Feel free to check them out. Monetization aside, I think it is one of the best AAA games for smartphones. I'm not interested in Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Warzone, but they are probably decent for some audience too. The visuals and sound design are impressive for a mobile game, and if you played Diablo 3 before, you'll probably like this familiar style. The campaign is linear and has a strict story-driven structure. Here you will be able to revisit some locations from Diablo 2 or Diablo 3 and meet familiar faces. A key feature of progression is the variety. You can play bounties, dungeons, cursed towers, PvP, Elder Rifts, Challenge Rifts, raids or Reliquary, random zone events, fight world bosses and complete battle pass objectives. All that will grant you XP, gear and some currency. Some zones also have instances which can be played solo or in a group. Inside these instances you can encounter unique gameplay mechanics and even voiced cutscenes. Even Dark Citadel from D4 can't match this level for some reason, although the Citadel has some close to raid mechanics that require cooperation from all the players. Even after completing the main campaign and reaching maximum level, you can continue exploring the world and start new storylines which were added with major content patches. These are not some fillers, these are actual stories with cutscenes, loot, new bosses and gameplay mechanics. I was actually surprised to play major content like Crucible of Justice and visit new areas. I would say even if you don't plan to play endgame content in Diablo Immortal, it is still worth trying, at least for the story and progression. There are a lot of solo and grouped PvE activities and a lot of meaningful rewards. I think it's quite well structured and I had no struggles whatsoever except legendary gems, PvP and microtransactions in general. Grim Dawn is the next game in my favorites list. It is dark, it's tactical, it's challenging, and it tries to stay as close as possible to Diablo 2. What makes this game also special is the dual class system, which lets players combine 2 of mastery specializations from other classes and create a unique build. The game features 6 playable classes in the base game and 3 more with the expansion packs. Aside of specializations, each skill has its own leveling tree, plus there is a devotion section with passive bonuses making entire customization even more flexible. Gameplay in Grim Dawn is slow paced. and while it's slow, it doesn't mean boring. The game encourages player to engage enemies with caution. It is the game where you have to optimize your build, understand certain mechanics and stats, and this rule applies not only for the endgame, but the campaign. If you slam some skills, equip random stuff, and don't read anything, your hero will be punished. I wouldn't say that this game is extremely hard and not user-friendly, it's just fairly balanced. If you are struggling in solo, you are free to play online as Grim Dawn supports multiplayer sessions up to 4 players. Recent expansions like Forgotten Gods add a lot of new content, and if you want more, you can install mods and play them with your friends. For endgame activities, Grim Dawn has the wave-based arena, also known as Crucible, and an infinite dungeon with escalating difficulty called Shattered Realm, which was introduced with the Forgotten Gods expansion. I would say this game is a perfect mix of a classic and modern RPGs. Not everyone will like it though, because again Grim Dawn has something from Diablo 2, and that is the pace and challenge which some modern gamers don't like. Plus the visuals didn't age well, but it will run well even on outdated and low-end PC with integrated graphics or a GPU like 1050 Ti. Wolcen is another game that made it to my list. It is definitely a controversial title, and the Steam reviews are proof of that. I played this game at launch back in 2020, and I also tried the early access version. Wolcen looked very promising, and I decided to give the developers a chance, but my expectations weren't met. The developers shifted their version towards the Diablo 3 formula, and that's exactly what we ended up with. That doesn't mean the game is a total disappointment. I did have some fun while it lasted. Wolcen runs on CryEngine, so you can expect lots of shiny effects, particles, high-res textures and all that. The sound design and combat are also very well executed, but something crucial was missing: soul. Wolcen struggles with its own identity, and the developers lacked the vision and perhaps the experience to truly refine the game. It had a strong launch and lots of activity, but then the game drowned in a wave of criticism, bugs and balancing issues. The developers couldn't fix everything in time. They even released 2 major content updates for free: Bloodstorm and Blood Trail, with new storylines and revamped mechanics. But it wasn't enough to save the game. Players had already lost interest. Eventually the developers shut down the online servers, making the game incomplete in a way as you can no longer play co-op with your friends. So why is Wolcen still memorable, and why did they include it in this list? Well, first of all, as I've already mentioned, I really liked the graphics, the style and the sound design. The UI and combat system are very similar to Diablo 3, with the key difference being that players have to balance their skills between 2 resources, and there is also an ultimate ability, a transformation into an apocalypse form. It all looks very flashy and stylish, each class has its own shiny abilities, and the game features a passive skill tree called the Gate of Fates, which you can rotate to create unique builds. Wolcen still plays quite well even today. I'm confident that this game will continue to look great even several years from now. Visually there is really nothing to criticize, everything is designed and styled at a 10 out of 10 level. The game isn't afraid to give players a shiny fantasy armor either, which can be transmogrified and dyed however you like, and best of all, there are no microtransactions. You get the full game with the one-time purchase, unlike Diablo 4. The story isn't groundbreaking, but it's fun to follow because the game constantly throws cinematic moments, cutscenes and expressive dialogue at you. As usual, the plot revolves around the invasion of a powerful enemy, conspiracies and villains with shady motives. After finishing the campaign, the game introduces the Champion of Stormfall mode with expeditions, similar to Greater Rifts from Diablo 3. Nothing special there, but what really stands out is your hub zone. You can upgrade your city using gathered resources to unlock new features. It is a very cool idea, and it's a real shame this kind of system doesn't exist in Diablo 3 or Diablo 4. And this city-based system is fully integrated into the endgame, including crafting, expeditions, quests and other activities. It is really unfortunate that the game servers were shut down and you can no longer experience the campaign or endgame online. That also means the single player experience is going to be short-lived. Still, Even if you missed Wolsen when it came out, it is worth playing at least once, for its solid implementation of solid ideas, its amazing visuals, and its engaging progression system. For those who want to dive deep into the MMO segment while still playing isometric, I recommend you Lost Ark. This game has tons of content and different activities Diablo 4 couldn't ever imagine. More than 20 subclasses with stylish abilities and diverse playstyles, huge continents with different zones, social features, a vibrant economy, action-packed stories with cutscenes, seasonal themes, the sailing system and more, all that for free. Whenever the game is free, there is always a catch, and Lost Ark is no exclusion to a certain degree. You won't face any crucial restrictions while leveling from 0 to level 60, but some items and zones will be eventually gated by paywalls. Gameplay is probably the most satisfying thing to watch. Every class feels responsive and powerful with a satisfying sense of impact. It is a fast-paced and flexible. All skills have their own purpose and are divided into several types. This means that certain skills have to be executed or triggered in a different way. In addition to the usual abilities that are activated by the press of the button, some of them can be held down for increased damage, combined for a series of attacks, or pre-targeted at the desired area. As for the endgame, Lost Ark has it covered. This is where the game truly shines. After finishing the storyline and getting to level 50+, players are free to unlock gear upgrades, play chaos dungeons and guardian raids. The progression seems to be straightforward and you always know what to do next to make a character stronger in order to play more challenging activities like Legion raids. This is a multi-phase activity filled with the hardest bosses and complex mechanics for 2 teams of 4 players. This is where you can find decent rewards in terms of items and gold. Each of these activities require coordination and determination, so if you're a fan of this type of content and like to push your builds to the limit, then it's definitely worth playing. If you prefer less intense activities, Lost Ark also offers just that. The game has several features like sailing, island exploration, stronghold management, fishing, mining, and varied collectibles such as souls, Mokoko seeds, giant's hearts, or masterpieces, and of course achievements if you're a true completionist. Of course, this MMO wouldn't be complete without PvP. It has casual and ranked modes, but I've never got a chance or desire to try it out. And judging by the reviews, the PvP is poorly balanced, has a lot of bugs, and the learning curve is quite steep. PvP players will most likely have to look for another game, but I think it's still better than PvP in Diablo 4. I know there's more stuff to discuss, but it would take a lot of time, so if you're still interested, I have a video review on my channel, feel free to check it out. Alright, moving next. Path of Exile 2 at the time the video was recorded is in the early access. Let's get this straight, yes, PoE 2 has a lot of problems related to performance, balance and current endgame. The developers are moving back and forth, nerfing progression, skills or tweaking difficulty levels. I don't know where this is going and I'm not following closely to this game and I'm not playing it recently, but that doesn't mean it's not worth the attention. Path of Exile 2 is a highly anticipated sequel that PoE 1 and Diablo players should try. Even the newcomers will like its depth and accessibility. While certain features remain the same, there are still a few major changes compared to the first game. Here you have 12 playable classes, each offers distinct playstyles and you can mix skills from each one to create a unique build. The notable change here, the gem-based system. In PoE 1 players had to create links between gems and this was a huge RNG aspect. PoE 2 has it simplified, some players like it, some players not. On the endgame side, PoE 2 already has multiple activities with vast rewards and some of them are first introduced during the campaign. Sequel retains the heavily randomized and repetitive Atlas of Worlds system, but with new extra flavors. Other new activities include high risk, high reward trials, breaches, rituals, expeditions, delirium mirrors, or pinnacle bosses. So basically once the campaign is finished, PoE 2 is unlocked from a completely different angle, with rich encounters and challenging activities despite the fact that this game is still in early access. However, community has some concerns and negative feedback regarding the game in general. While the campaign in PoE 2 is done well with all the dialogues, unique and engaging multi-phase bosses, decent visuals and smooth gameplay, it can be punishing and it has less RNG than its predecessor. Some complain that the game lacks variety and doesn't provide much progression. The developers themselves focus mostly on microtransactions rather than pushing new updates and fixing bugs. For now it is quite controversial and this sequel has still a long way to go. Grinding gear games doesn't seem to be grinding much, considering that major patches come out rarely and the complete CPU freezing problem still has not been resolved since the early access release. Clearly it's still a work in progress, but PoE 2 has a chance to become decent. If you are looking for some challenging experience, the revamped systems from PoE 1 and expanded endgame content, then it's worth playing. The final game on my list is Last Epoch, an RPG that strikes an excellent balance between accessibility and depth in its end game. The core theme of the game is time travel. The campaign introduces the basics while letting you explore the world of Ithera across the past, present and future. The story is fairly linear and unlike Diablo 4, you can't freely roam the world, but the progression is straightforward and satisfying. Once you complete the campaign at least once, you can skip most of the main quests by using dungeons, making subsequent playthroughs much faster. Character customization is another highlight. There are 5 base classes, each with 3 mastery options. That might not sound like much, but each class feels unique thanks to a deep crafting system, diverse skill trees with plenty of synergies, and varied loot with idols, basically charms from D2. There is always something new to farm, something to craft, and always a reason to push further into top tier content. The endgame revolves around the monoliths of fate, similar to Diablo 3's Greater Rifts but with their own features. Whether in normal or empowered mode, monoliths take you through alternative timelines where you kill enemies, test your build against scaling difficulty, and face challenging bosses to earn permanent blessings. Other endgame activities include the arena with local leaderboards, dungeons with unique modifiers, and factions, which you can pick to shape your progression and unlock exclusive buffs or rewards. Like most ARPGs, Last Epoch also features seasonal content that expand the endgame. Seasons introduce fresh mechanics such as a Primal Hunts, the Weaver's Wheel skill tree, or the Valven faction, keeping the experience fresh for returning players. I personally like this game and I played it extensively at launch. I even made a video review covering its pros and cons, some of which still hold true today, so feel free to check this video on my channel. However, there is one more important point to mention. The game was recently acquired by Krafton, a Korean pay-to-win company known for MMO titles and aggressive monetization. Based on recent community feedback, many players aren't happy, and the future of Last Epoch remains uncertain. Only time will tell of what will happen next. Right now, at the moment of posting this video, Last Epoch is 100% worth playing. One more game I would like to add here as an honorable mention is Titan Quest 2. At the time of recording, this game is still far from being finished, but judging by its current state, it has the potential to become a hit. Grimlord Games, the developers, have created a fairly attractive demo that feels pleasant to play. Unlike many other ARPGs, there is no dark, oppressive atmosphere here. Instead, it is a bright and colorful fantasy world filled with beautiful visual effects, animations and graphics. Each location is crafted with a high level of detail and the designer's work is clearly visible. The gameplay itself feels slow-paced and measured. Much like in Diablo 4, there is a dash mechanic and many fights revolve around dodging, especially when it comes to bosses. The unique feature of this game is that there are no classes. You create a base hero and add the abilities you need through specializations. Skills can be leveled up and even slotted with several passive runes that interact with one another. The system feels intuitive and took me no more than 10 minutes to fully understand how the skill progression works. As for the current amount of content in Titan Quest 2, it surely leaves much to be desired. Right now it offers about 5 to 10 hours of relaxed exploration, but this number will undoubtedly increase in the future. What the endgame will look like is still unknown, but it's a must-have feature in today's RPG world. The first Titan quest didn't really shine in terms of endgame. It only had replaying the campaign on higher difficulties, some secret dungeons, and the endless wave-based arena called Tartarus from the Atlantis DLC. I hope the sequel preserves the spirit of the original while bringing in something fresh. For now there isn't much reason to play the game due to the limited amount of content, but I would still recommend purchasing it to support the title and its development. After all, the price will likely be higher at launch. Of course, as bitter experience shows, it is hard to trust early access games these days. A prime example is Wolfen, which failed to live up to players' expectations. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to share in this video. Diablo 4 is undoubtedly a good game, at least in terms of story, cinematics and gameplay, but it also has its own problems, which are being solved very slowly by Blizzard. If you are as tired of the game as I am, I hope my video will help you out. The RPG genre is vast. Depending on whether you prioritize accessibility, endgame or story, these games can meet your needs and keep you entertained for countless hours. Thank you for watching and listening. If you have any questions or want to share your own stories, feel free to leave a comment below. Have a nice day and happy farming!